furnace, and I have to kind of let it cool for a moment before I kind of center it in this metal ring. And this is a little technique I learned. These metal rings are actually Japanese. It's a Japanese glass blowing tool. Probably won't see anyone else in America use something like that. After I center it, I'll start a little bubble. And then by swinging it or holding it down, you can see how readily it will elongate. And that's it's a big tool when you make glass. It's actually using gravity a lot to be able to control the glass. I'll just gently shape it into a straight bubble. Yeah. And while I let this cool, my assistant Billy is going to gather up a little bit and roll it into color. I'm going to blow that. What's that? We're just going to add this on. It was a mix of emerald and cobalt blue, and that gets kind of mixed when I actually apply it to my bubble. And very quickly, it cools so fast, I'm going to shape it into a little bit of a wave image here. Also, by putting all these little creases in here, I'm going to be able to trap in little air bubbles. Even by pushing in little divots like that will actually help increase the air bubbles that I capture when I gather over. When I gather over this clear, that's going to trap air bubbles. We're going to make we'll make a little plate. Kind of have to let that get cold. Obviously now, much too cold. This is all frozen. So you can feel how fast we have to work. Like I said, second increments is what we usually calibrate our timing to. The same in glass blowing. If you have to ask for it, it's usually too late. So all of my assistants are well versed in what we're making, how we're going to make it. Other pieces that we haven't made before are very complicated. We'll actually rehearse it in the studio before we start. So I'm going to be here, Spencer's going to be there, Andrew will be there, Billy will be there. Oh, that's not going to work. We'll redo it and figure out what's going to be the most effective. Now the color's gone and it's pretty stiff. This will allow me a little bit, like 5 seconds, to gather glass, and before this bubble starts to move, I'll have it all gathered and centered. Inside the furnace is a large crucible full of molten glass. It holds about 200 pounds of glass. You can see I can center that hot gather around my bubble before my first bubble starts to move and get hot. And obviously that's very critical if you want something very straight and even. Right now everything's warmed back up again. You can see how everything is moving. So much glass blowing, it's not really working, but often waiting for it to cool down a little bit, waiting for it to heat up. The most important thing now is trying to heat it up, even out that glass, even out that cold color that I had put on versus that hot gather that I just added. Very critical. You've got to be able to get a nice jack line into your piece. This goes back probably about 2,000 years to the Romans. The Egyptians are credited actually with the first people to actually make glass. The Romans are the first people to actually credited with actually blowing it. The Egyptians would make small beads, or they would do make a core vessel, take a stick of clay and and wrap glass around the clay, and when it's cool, they can dig out the clay and have a little bottle for the pharaohs or for the high priests. Receiving my Bachelor of Fine Arts in ceramics. It was the ceramics student that first built the glass furnace in our university at Washington University in St. Louis. And as you can probably see how a potter could really transform, his ability to center a pot to centering a ball of glass on the bench. It was a very easy transition to go from a potter's wheel to centering a ball of clay to centering a ball of glass. So we readily caught on the idea of how to center the glass, how to form it. But it was all really kind of high energy. Not very much instruction. No one really knew how to make glass at that point. But it was a lot of good energy. And I've got my basic shape. Now I'm going to put a foot on it. Basically all day long, as long as you keep it warm. There's a couple ways I can do it. I have a nice torch here, a propane torch, or you just do a lot of reheats. I'm going to make this a sea bubble series, so I'm going to put a little wave into the foot. Tools are made of cherry wood. It's a very fine grain wood that won't really scar the glass. Pine would probably be the least desirable wood to use. Again, if I feel like it's a little cold, I take a torch. Give it a little heat. Now I call this a punty, which allows me to take it off of my blowpipe and finish the lid. That probably less than 1% of glass made today is done like this. 100 years ago, it was all done like this. gloves in glass making because you need the dexterity of your hands and your fingers. But when you open up a piece, it's almost done. Now you're just going to finish opening it. I will put on a glove and a sleeve when I extend my arm out to open it. It keeps it protected. We have different ring sizes for different size pieces. On very large pieces, we'll light up this glory hole here in the corner, and that will get as hot as a furnace. And we'll just use that when we need to make large pieces. But small pieces like this, I can usually get out of the furnace. Always ask me, how do you know it's ready? Well, you can either like stop it for a moment, a second, and let it drop, and you can see how fast it's moving. Or if I look at that rough edge that came off of the blow pipe, and I notice it's all very rounded and smooth, I know it's ready, that I can open it. Now he's paddling my lip for me, and this takes very little pressure. It's so hot that just by pushing on that very gently will open up that what we call opening up the lid. So if I wanted to make a bowl, I could almost stop right here. I can stop here and have a little. That lower part of the plate where the lip is very thin, and it's going to get a lot of heat from both sides, where that bottom area doesn't. So that little torch helps compensate for that. You can see the centrifugal force just opens that right up to the plate. And I'll make sure it's nice and straight. I like to have it a little bit concave so it holds in. And I'll straighten the foot. Andrew here is going to straighten the lip to make sure it sits totally flat on the table. Bubble plate. We have a moment here before it gets too cold, but I'm going to preheat that board so it doesn't crack. I'm going to take a little torch here and fire off that little sharp edge. Goes into the annealing oven. Cool overnight. That's so thin that it would be cooled overnight, probably on about a 6-8 hour cycle. Then it come out tomorrow on the meetings. And that's one of the greatest things that really excited myself and all the other potters back in 1980 when we started making glass, was the fact that you can make something today and use it tomorrow, which is unheard of in ceramics. You can throw a pot, you let it dry, you trim the bottom, you let it dry, you bisque it, you bring it back, you glaze it, you refire it. It can be a month before a piece is actually finished in ceramics, where the glass is so fast, so instantaneous. It was so exciting to do. So It was something you started and you just never looked back.